Good evening and welcome to VI Voices. I'm Emil Henderson III, along with Boyd Anthony McFarland, Natalie Nelson Tanhow, and Clint D.W. Ferris. Tonight we also will be doing a show tonight on the Open Shores Act, or Open Shoreline Act. As you know, there's been a lot of issues with that going on now with the issue regarding Judith's Fancy and access to the beach through the Judith's Fancy area. And we have with us tonight former Senator Adelbert and Bert Bryan, who has been one of those individuals championing the right of the local Virgin Islanders and all members of the public to access that area in conformity with the Shorelines Act. So we welcome you, Senator Bryan, to VI Voices. Thank you for being here.
Good evening.
And so we're going to go right into the discussion on the Shorelines Act. And I want to start off by specifically looking at the declaration of the policy, which is under, and of course you can find the Shorelines Act under Title 12 of the Virgin Islands Code, beginning at Section 401. And here's what it says in there, at least in pertinent part, that the legislature recognizes that the public has made frequent, uninterrupted, and unobstructed use of the shorelines of the United States Virgin Islands throughout Danish rule and under American rule as recently as the 1950s. It is the intent of the legislature to preserve what has been a tradition and to protect what has become a right of the public. Now, as you know, the Attorney General has issued a press release, and on a former show, I had said that he had issued a legal opinion, an Attorney General's opinion, which under the law would be law until either legislature changes that position or the court changes that position by a ruling. In researching for tonight, I realized that the Attorney General never issued an Attorney General's opinion. All he did was issue a press release. So there still is no, determination of what the Attorney General is saying, but there is law that seems to fall on the side of the people's right to go to that beach, through that area that the members of Judith's Fancy Homeowners Association are trying to block. What are your thoughts on that?
Actually, I recall when when the story broke, they had a meeting, and at that particular time, nothing was offered other than we're going to go back and look at it, and I knew there was a setup for what was going to come out of the Attorney General office, because to me it was clear that the people should have had access to the road, and if the tenant association of the homeowners association of Judith Fancy wanted to abridge that right, or to curtail that right, I think they should have seek recourse or redress in the courts. And I think what the Attorney General did was trying to circumvent that and create something and then give them immediate relief. Now the people now have to go to the court to bring forth corrective action. And I thought it should have been the other way around.
That's a good point though, but is that the only access road? I guess we should ask our guests, but is that the only access road to the beach that we know of?
That's the only legible access.
For what I know.
What do we mean by
because I've tried to access the beach on the other side.
Which is the road they call an NPR road.
Yeah, that particular road.
And that road is not.
That's the main access into that particular area.
But the main access and the only access is two different.
Okay, then they're right. The main and only right.
Well,
Former Senator Bryan?
Good evening. What the concern basically is, as Attorney Henderson mentioned, the Title 12, and Chapter 10, the Attorney General basically used one portion of that to write the press release. I've been trying to get that opinion in various ways from St. Croix and St. Thomas.
Well, let's not call them opinion.
It's not an opinion, yeah.
No, that's what I'm saying, because
his
mentioned,
press release. Yeah.
He used a press release that he had an opinion.
Right.
So I went looking for it. But to get away from all of that fast days, that under the same Title 12, 403 tell you, no individual, corporation, or group shall obstruct, bail, or deny access to this place.
Right.
If you read the Danish Sales Treaty of the United States and even register and look at the Axholm map that is mentioned in the Sales Treaty, if he is saying that these are a state road, you must understand that in the 18 and early 1900s, before 1878, our ancestors were living and working on these estates. We didn't have helicopters and cars and Benz. We had cars and foot to go to work. In other words, if a Tony wanted to marry you and she was living in Judith's Fancy and he was in Grove Place, she could move from there until a estate manager negotiate for you to move to Judith Fancy or she to move to Grove. We can show you death certificates of families that are living in Judith Fancy because they're here. So they're obstructing the justice on the guys that it is their road because they pave it. If I borrow the attorney's car to use for a week and I get a flat and I had to go to H&H and buy a tire, that is not my car. I had to put a car on the tire in order for me to get around. The estate road are listed in the Virginals, particularly St. Croix, when they divided St. Croix into 9 quarters. You have 1, 2, 3 all the way, and you have Prince Quarter, Queen Quarter, right. As I say right now. If you look at the road of the ex-home map, 4H comes from round the corner from St. John and goes straight down to the shoreline. You go into the Salt River, you can come through Salt River and come back through the Salt River and get there. But what the game is, since the Park Service purchased 70 acres inside behind there, they are now landlocked from this road because they don't want Park Service to come through there to develop anything. So Park Service is actually going along with Judith Fancy homeowners in order to control all of us sitting here to get to the beach by having a time to go to the park. And I maintain that 4H, as it continues all the way down, it goes around inside of Judith Fancy and comes right back out in another area.
So let me ask you this question. So I think we're clear. And give a visual for the people. When you say 4H by St. John, you're talking about 4H by commonly known as where Lionel's Gas or One Love Gas Station was, and across will be Chocolate Bar. So beginning there, going straight down to the water was all 4H.
You're going straight down, that's 4H going all the way inside.
So to the extent that the federal government, the National Park Service has purchased land around,
in the back.
Yeah. The other access road would be that whenever they develop whatever they develop, we have to go through their property to get there.
Yeah, and they don't mind because they will control along with the Judith Fancy homeowners. I don't accept the fact that an attorney can present a deed and show when the Moraleses were living in there that they could have sold a road contrary to what the home map says.
Now let me ask you, you said the attorney brought a deed and the people are arguing and it seems that the Attorney General is agreeing that they purchased this road when they purchased the land.
Could you purchase the road?
I'm about to tell you, I'm trying to figure out how. Natalie, do you do real estate as well, Natalie?
I do some.
Okay. I don't understand. I've never heard, and I do real estate law, I've never heard of being able to sell property that belongs to the public to between private parties. That I've never heard of. Well, I haven't even heard that you can sell property not subject to an easement that's already present within there. So how would they, did the attorney explain to you all how they acquired ownership to this road there?
All they are saying is that Tony Isherwood, his father was also an attorney, is that they're presenting a deed of transfer and title to the remaining quarters of Judith Fancy. They're saying since they purchased the remaining quarters, that road is their road.
And when was this purchase done?
They had 2 different dates from them in the 80s. I think they had a map showing
1980s?
In the 80s.
1980s?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And earlier, because you must remember that Randy Lugo was married to one of the Moraleses who had a land in Judith Fancy. But when you look at the road, that road that they call Hamilton Drive, probably named after Alexander Hamilton, it continues from St. C Road, go all the way down as 4H. It doesn't change the name on the map, and that's on their own map. So the question is, if you look at Title 29, I think it's 238, it tells you that this road, once you have 10 residents or more, you cannot deny access on that same road.
Well, let's look at comparison. You have Estate Shores. And you have to access the guard gate and go through Shores. And I don't know if that's the only access, but I know you have the right of way as the public to go through Shores to access the beach, right? Is this a similar situation, or is there some unique characteristic that distinguishes?
The unique characteristic is they have a guardhouse erected there.
Right.
And they have a guard on contract.
Right.
And this guard will tell you, excuse me, it says the sign says visitors or contractors. I am not a visitor or contractor when I go there. And they ask you for driver's license, which is against the law. You must log in and tell them where you're going. If I'm not going to a resident, I don't have to tell them I'm going to the beach. And if I don't have the right to give them a license, they can't demand that I identify myself. Otherwise, I need a sign to Momiju and sign farm and Grove Place and address. Because you come into an estate.
What I'm trying to get at is there a deed of transfer that exists, for example, for the Shoy's property?
Because Shoy's an estate Shoy.
Right, since they're saying that there's a deed of transfer that Attorney Isherwood or somebody presented that shows they bought the remainder of the property, that's what you're saying, right?
It depends on how they write the deed. An attorney drafting a deed, if the people in the record of deed accept a transfer of a public road, they are wrong in registering that road as transferring the public road, because on the King's Road law, in the Danish Sales Treaty, they make reference to the King Road law. There are court cases in St. Thomas and St. Croix making reference to being landlocked and access to these places.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I wanted, like I said, I was doing research today for tonight's show. Two things. I want to use the excuse, the example of, not Shoy, Green Key.
Green Key, yes.
Remember, Green Key went and built up an entire guard gate with the guard ramp, everything, right? You notice that that's never done anymore.
It's empty.
And it's because they were told that you couldn't block people from driving in to get to the beach. And so they don't stop you. There's nobody sitting in the gate. The thing is never down. You can drive in and drive back out as you please. At Shoy's, they also had a person in there, but they never did. All they says, where you going? I'm going to the beach. And you went. They never took IDs from you. They never did any of that stuff from you. What they're doing at Judith's Fancy is going way beyond that. They're making you turn over identification, all this other stuff, as if you're going into Judith's Fancy.
Under the guise of the properties are being
under the guise that it's ours and I'm letting you come through.
Right, but there's still distinctions, guys. There's still distinctions. For example, in Estate Green Key Marina, there is restaurants back there, there's a hotel back there, there's a marina back there, there's lots that public need to access it for, as opposed to Judith's Fancy. If I'm understanding it, it's just only residential in there.
But they're on the beach.
I mean, besides the beach.
It is not only residential. They push down houses and windmills that were there.
Historic sites.
They push them down. And that is how the park service ended up purchasing.
But I thought that was also restricted by law.
Which one?
To remove or
it is restricted.
Who monitors these things? Who can DPNR?
Historic buildings
it is restricted.
And sites.
You cannot.
Have you heard the Landmark Society say anything yet? What do you think they acquire? Because if you begin allowing that to exist, then I need a gate to Grove Place, or to Strawberry, or to Mumbiju, because there's a windmill there. So if you're using that as an excuse for crime, then there's another crime in Arodias, Grove Place, and Mumbiju, and then so we need a gate to know who's going in there.
And the point is this, because I can't really justify it saying, well, the money talks, because Judith's Fancy is no more upscale than Estate Shoy's.
But if you think about Shoy, you also make the comparison. There's no more upscale, no more affluence. Yeah, maybe right. Because they have $1 million homes in both.
Right.
But in Shoy,
there also isn't any restaurant
to answer anything, and they're not taking your ID or any of those stuff.
So Shoy's is probably more similar to
Judith's Fancy.
Right.
Than Green Key.
But they also don't require all that Judith's Fancy is requiring.
They don't.
At all.
But that's you know something? Estate St. George's have $1 million houses too. Where's the gate to Village St. George's? I like to name a lot of estates.
Do they have a homeowners association?
Yeah, they do.
You could have a
very active
home owner, not road owner.
Right.
Home owner. A home is where you live.
Right.
A road is an access under Title 29, under the Home Sales Treaty, and also the Virgin. We are being played for the shoreline access as opposed to estate road access.
Now, let me just also make something clear for our listening audience so we understand, so they don't presume, because what you said is that we should put up gates for all these other neighborhoods. Let's recognize that Estate Strawberry, they don't have beaches. So let's start there. But I think what you're saying is, if we follow the Attorney General's press release, it's okay for them to do those things. If you're following his opinion, let's strike that. If you're following his reasoning, his press release, then it would be okay for any neighborhood to close up their thing, whether you have a beach or not. if you follow his reasoning.
And then you head into apartheid like Soweto in South Africa. What are you doing in this area? Who are you? Where you going? Where you coming from? That can't help me here as long as I'm alive.
Okay, well let's...
Because our children, me talking about me, I talk about generations down, they don't even know these things.
Okay.
And that's why our education curriculum need to bring it up to speed.
Absolutely.
In the curriculum so the children can understand these roads your ancestors walked in there, beaten in there, hanged in there, burnt in there, and we have a right to be in it because if we can produce a death certificate from the 1800s inside the jail fancy, nobody like Isha will live in there then, if they were not Irish.
I'll let you, Nandi, we'll take a quick break. I will come back and let you ask your questions. Back in a moment. And welcome back. We're having a very spirited discussion on the Shorelines Act, and Natalie had a question for Senator Bryan. Go ahead, Natalie.
Okay, let me make sure I remember what I was going to ask. But basically, I was interested in knowing that, I think we just answered it in, if the road is being considered a private road, and that's why we have an issue. But that's according to the press release, not according to an opinion that was officially issued. Okay.
No. It was just something to appease people to start to timid you to believe you shouldn't go there.
Right.
But the attorney general opinion by law must be registered and has a number and a year and date.
Exactly. And as you said, to appease though, is there some sort of a justification argument as it relates to the safety and security of the residents who are paying, you know, homeowners association dues and having houses, that they need to be feeling safe and protected in their homes, and with the high crime rates that we have in the territory.
To be safe in our homes?
We all are.
All right.
I'm saying that, is there some sort of a justification argument that justifies the reason why they don't want the public coming?
But they can't justify it, they can say so.
I'm saying, is that an argument? Is
they said that down there. But at the meeting that was mentioned, but it was not until I cleared the situation and showed them the actual map, and the police came and told them, it was a lieutenant and a sergeant, told them, look, you cannot demand people to turn over the license to you at the gate in order to go, you give it back when they come back.
Right.
And we cleared it up.
They actually keep
it? You have to turn in your driver's license to them at the gate.
That's a big and leave it. Here's the part that has me confused, the Attorney General's press release, that leads to believe that he has not researched this before issuing a press release and had not looked at any documents. Because we have at least two cases issued on this issue. One from 1974, United States of America and Government of the Virgins versus St. Thomas Beach Resorts, Inc. And that's a 1974 case, and it was issued by Chief Judge American Christian. And then you have Rivera v. United States of America, a 1996 case issued by Judge Finch.
What year that is?
1996, issued by Judge Finch. All reckoning to U.S. Supreme Court cases as well. Now, you mentioned something during the break, Clint, that was very important, that Chief Judge Christian wrote about. And what he said was that because the public use, it was just an issue dealing with Bolongo Bay, and this subject came up, and they wanted to preclude the people from coming through there to get to Bolongo Bay Beach, when everyone, for as long as you can think about, has always used Bolongo Bay Beach freely and did whatever they wanted to do at Bolongo Bay Beach, right? And what he said was that he was persuaded that the custom of the inhabitants of the Virgin Islands of using the beach at Bolongo Bay as a public recreation area was not only extant at the time the defendants erected its fences, but was notorious, which means when they went there, they all knew that's what people did on that beach. Right. Just like how whenever your barge is fancy and you put up the fence, you knew everybody would be going there. And if I remember correctly, there was some people who said that his father fished on that beach, and he is a fisherman, and he fished at this beach for at least 25 years. He has been fishing there, and his father fished there even longer than he had been doing there, and they were going in through freely. And then he says that he is satisfied that notice of the custom on the part of persons buying land at Bolongo Bay must therefore be presumed. And so because public use of the beach at Bolongo Bay before defendant erected any fences, here's what he went through: existed over a long period of time, was free from dispute and was peaceable, was exercised without interruption by anyone possessing a paramount right, was exercised in a manner appropriate to the beach, was exercised within a definable area, was similar to that of other beaches in jurisdiction, was not repugnant to any other law, he concluded that the Open Shorelines Act has taken nothing away from the defendant, which it had a legitimate reason in this regard to exclusive property or right. So to answer your question about them being safe in their homes, what he is saying, if all these things existed, even though yes, you have a legitimate right to want to be protected in your home, the Open Shorelines Act is paramount and clear that you cannot stop people from going there when you knew that's what they've been doing. Which, in other words, he's recognizing the custom of the people at the time when they're doing that. Now, in this legal opinion by Chief Judge Christian, he references and goes back to the presidential proclamation that occurred between Denmark and the United States when Denmark ceded and transferred all of its ownership and all of its property to the United States. And then when, of course, the president accepted the proclamation, which means all those lands, as they were owned by the King of Denmark, was also owned, as the state rules, were also owned now by the United States of America under the control of, at the time, would be the government of the Virgin Islands, which would be this road. That's the King's Law, which would be this road.
Correct.
And so it seems to me, in reading his opinion, what he even makes a reference to another case, which is Red Hook Marina case versus Antilles Yachting Corp, where he says public use of the beach generally dates back to the period when these islands were under Danish dominion.
And that is really,
and that's the recognition. And the law is clear. Apparently every case that has come out that's dealt with this issue has basically says you got to start from there.
How can we have an attorney general?
That is where the Danish Act's home map shows you these rules. And in addition to that, what probably missing in there, they didn't only put up a fence here, they had baboya out in the sea with fence.
Right.
And you stood in there.
Into the sea?
Into the
I
sea.
tell you, I old enough to know that.
Jeez.
You could be, you know, people on the beach and like to swim.
Yeah.
You could have been some who do you hook up in the bubble, who are hearing.
Yeah.
You know, that's
Even the
unheard of.
turtles couldn't go around there. And in addition to that, Dick Domain, the father at the time, I was a police officer at the time going there, a young officer, and that is how that came to light because they had baboya not on the fence, in the sea water. And they made, that case made them take it down. If you look for another case, Hodge versus Bluebeard's Castle, the speaks and make reference to the King Rules Law. You look for, yes, young lady from Bradhouse, she had a case similar to the same situation. So it is not right for the Chief Justice or the Attorney General to write a press release inconsistent with those cases and make reference that he researched documents and give the impression that they didn't do any research. If that is the case, then show where you reference cases, documentation, the actual map, and the Danish Treaty, because the Danish Treaty says any misunderstanding or misinterpretation of the Treaty goes to The Hague.
But it sounds to me by doing so, it puts the ball back into the public's court to take action to do what's, because right now that's what stands,
but in my position, I don't think the people need to go to court. I think people need to go right through to this fancy as they normally would, because the law. There's nothing for you to declare. Ordinarily, what you would do here is file a declaratory judgment action to declare that this road is yours. But you don't have to, because the case already declared that that's what those roads are.
Case law,
and that you don't have that
there's
authority to
presidential. Okay, we have precedent set with existing case law, which stands. It hasn't been overturned or changed. But at the same token, it still requires some sort of a proactive.
You know what the active road to do? If 40 people go down to the fancy tomorrow, the most the police can do is come there and ask you what is the problem.
Okay.
When we came to go on this road, we go into the shoreline, and they are blocking me.
But
you can't tell the police that we're blocking the road.
But you are a former police officer. Let's say the police can come here and ask. You decide that you are proceeding into the road that's supposed to be, right? Then the next action would then, okay, they will be deciding, well, we're gonna arrest you.
But they couldn't. But see, that's the problem. The problem is that here's why they couldn't. Because the Attorney General has not issued an opinion that becomes law.
He said a
press release.
Right.
And
okay,
so
but
therefore,
there is no law preventing
if you follow the opinions that have been issued by the various courts that has said you can't deny it.
Right.
And that have already reviewed.
You can't obstruct it or
erect. Or actually, they can't obstruct it.
But herein lies the dilemma.
Dilemma? Okay.
The dilemma.
Yeah.
Right? let's say you exercise that right because knowingly, you know, the law is on your side.
Right.
And you're laughing, but let me tell you where this is going to go. Let's say you you decide, okay, we're doing this, 40 of us, 50 of us, we're going through. And they decide we're arresting all of you. I'm charging you with trespass.
Right.
Be that as it may, may be correct, and at a later point in time when it goes through the process, it all gets dismissed. But then you have this record on your.
No, because what happened.
You have to go through the whole expungement.
No. What would happen? No, what would happen is the very after you've arrested me for something that you knew I could not be arrested for,
you have to
I would then be suing the Judas Fancy Association for improperly arresting me and misuse of a criminal proceeding. That's what I would be doing if that happened to me. Because it just my thing is, if they weren't laws, if there weren't cases that dealt with this issue already, I would go along with you. Because it would be like a case of first impression you're trying to push to get up position. But you've already had it. And what's important, I want to read one more time in a footnote that Chief Judge Christian wrote, when he says, parenthetically, he notes that even if I were to find that the public had not established a customary right to use of defendant's speech, I would be persuaded that the conduct of former owners of Bolonga Bay uplands in acquiescing to the public's use of the beach and not attempting to prevent them or limit such use had, in light of strong public policy expressed in the Open Shores Act, resulted in an implied dedication to the public of the use of the beach area. And he cited to another case. Then he says, I believe it might also be said that the public has acquired a prescriptive easement appurtenant in the beach for recreational purposes. Okay. So what he's basically saying is, even if the Homeowners Association started in 1980, before 1980, nobody stopped them from using it. They were prior owners, and they allowed it. And so even if he found that at this point you weren't one, he could find out, you know what? All the prior owners seem to have thought that it was okay for you to do it, and so you've developed an easement for you to go through that property.
But gentlemen, what concerns me is there must be some sort of an exception or something that exists that gives Judith Fancy the belief that this can be done.
Because they decide they do it.
I think it's simple. They don't know. They just believe that we own the land and we can do it.
Might makes right. And that's what they're trying to do.
But what if this happened? What if, we haven't seen it, but what if that deed of transfer was erroneously recorded, showing that that property, that private road had somehow been turned over?
Which deed of transfer for the Morales had to them?
Yeah, the one that you're saying.
But who lived there before? The same thing exactly what he said. Because the prior owners of before the Moraleses know that people going to live in there.
But here's the thing. You're right. What bothers me is that the recorder of deeds would have accepted it when the person came in with a deed. It's like me coming in and I'm putting a whole deed, and in the deed, you're selling your house to me. I kind of like what's going on by Boyd's house, so I cannot change up stuff in the deed and put it on there and submit it. And somehow 10 years later, Boyd thinking that he has something, and so no, I got it from Natalie. No, I think so. The recorder of deeds should have received it and said, well, no, you can't. First of all, I take it back. Cadastral should have been the first group to say, well, no, you can't do this because this is a public road. You can't transfer it, and it's an invalid deed, and send it back. Because I've had deeds come back to my office if I had a period or a comma, or if I accidentally put Prince Quarter as opposed to Queen's Quarter. I mean, or whatever it is, saying, no, you can't do that. Can you please correct this?
That's kind of what concerns me, because do I get deeds back too just for correction? So it seems like either it was overlooked or it was disregarded. But
I think disregarded is
the most dangerous thing. If we as a people in this age allow us as a population to get back to Soweto and South Africa, we can block us off, access who we're going to, you won't create a problem. Because I know that I can find enough people in Frederickston and put up a fence or a gate and ask you when you come from Julius Fancy where you're going. And suppose I decide the Williams who own all the land outside of Julius Fancy put a gate right 20 feet from theirs and say, you come out to Julius Fancy, tell me where you're going to go through this road.
Well, let me ask you this. What if, and that's a good point, but let me ask you this. What if you access it from, because, Salt River and all of that is behind there, right?
You can only access it through the park. because the park
to the park.
always
Right.
going.
But
And that is the psyche that we are not looking.
That's a good segue.
Okay.
We're going to take a quick break, come out to that, because I want to talk to you all about the other case that dealt with the National Park Service trying to block access to Buck Island, and Judge Finn said, nope,
That's right.
you can't do that. So back in a moment. Welcome back to VI Voices. We're having, like I said, a very spirited discussion. I think, I want a lot of you to really go out and view this video in particular, because we're really learning a lot from Senator Bryan. The discussion is spirited, and I think we need to be very clear, because the Attorney General's press release has some serious ramifications if it's allowed for people to just use that and go forward. But we were talking about, or you were discussing the issue of the way to, if we follow this Judas fancy thing, we can't go through there. The way to go through the National Park Service, where they can close down stuff and water and stuff.
Right.
Now, the Rivera v. United States case, which was before Judge Finch, and he ruled this case, is where the parks, as you know, the Buck Island was turned over as a national park area for the Park Service. And when in 1996 they had the government shut down, they shut down access to Buck Island. It says you can't come there because we only have one employee, and it'd be unsafe to have anybody going on the beach, but we only have one employee on the beach, right? And Judge Finch basically says, no, you can't shut down Buck Island, because Buck Island was one of the keys to the lands included in the presidential proclamation, and what Denmark turned over there. The people had used Buck Island Beach publicly as they freely use. Nobody ever stopped them from doing it. The fact that you created a National Park Service for it in and of itself doesn't take away the Shorelines Act issues, nor the access for people to use the beach if they want to use the beach. And he granted the injunction and says, no, United States, you can't do that. They argue that people get hurt if they go to the beach. And Judge Finch was like, okay, well, all the other parks that you may have around here, people go there all the time. He was not convinced that all the other beaches that you could go to, that people get hurt because they only have one employee at the beach. And so he disallowed it and said you couldn't do it. And what he basically did here, as well as Judge Christian did, was he went back to discussing the proclamation that included Buck Island into the public and government and crown lands that were ceded to the United States by Denmark under the convention entered on August 4th, 1916. And he cited to it the proclamation number 3443. And it's in the United States Code annotated. That's listed in there that the government, the VI government at the time, would control Buck Island. And then, of course, something happened, and then there became a National Park Service issue. But with that, the part that made it the National Park Service, the president at the time, which would have been President Kennedy, at the time when he did the proclamation, specifically said nothing in the transfer is to preclude or obstruct the locals from using, access, recreational activities, or anything on Buck Island. And as a result of that, Judge Finch says, you can have your shut down as much as you want, but nothing will stop the people from going to Buck Island and using the beach. If you're an employee,
they could still go there.
Right, without any employee, right. Whether you have 10 employees or 0 employees.
Why do we have an Attorney General?
Well, we have an Attorney General because the Attorney General is supposed to represent the people of the Virgin Islands. Over the last few years, people have thought that the Attorney General represents the Governor of the Virgin Islands. No. The Governor has legal counsel in his office who represents him as the Governor. The Attorney General is the attorney for the people of the Virgin Islands, which means when that occurred, he really should have been filing an injunction on behalf of the people.
Correct.
Telling Judith Fancy, you can't do that.
That's the purpose.
You know what I'm saying? But that's not what he did.
That could come.
And that's the other way he could have gotten into court.
Basically, as the Solicitor General, that's his jurisdiction.
Right.
And they are under his office.
Right.
And the Solicitor General ain't sent up here.
It was, I think, the Attorney General missed an opportunity to clarify for anybody who was confused by these cases. And listen, you could buy land on the beach if you want, but you understand yourself, you can't block up anything for people getting to the beach. And he could have sat down really and issued a legal opinion, basically look at this entire island, entire territory, where the roads were, and say, this road, this road, this road, this road are all
And I'm glad you made that
access.
point, Emil, because I think it needs to be reinforced somewhere, somehow.
That's when he finished the opinion, he knows it.
But he ain't
You
do
know what
it.
I'm saying?
He ain't
For the
do it.
benefit of the public and to know that this is the rights that exist and this is, nothing has changed this. I think it has to be reinforced.
Right.
But that is
somewhere.
why we can't get nowhere, because I've been trying to get the written opinion as recent
Well, it
Can't
doesn't
get
look like
there,
that's
they don't
coming.
have
because
one.
they tell me they ain't right. I
It's a
talked to
press
Anderson.
release. Yeah, it's a press
I
release.
spoke to Poutine. I spoke to the clerks of the Attorney General. I spoke to the Chief of Police. I said, look, now, you all need to get your commissioner, get that written opinion rather than that press release before you put the police in violation of consent decree. Because how you going to go down there and arrest people who can drive all those cars? You have to pick them up. Then you imprison me, you have to loose me on bail because I'm a threat to security. I'm a flight risk.
Right.
So you're creating a bigger problem over a misrepresentation of the case.
But
So
you know
doing
what,
the
you know
case
what the
itself.
people at Children's Fancy can do if they feel that way? The people at Children's Fancy can erect a big wall on this side of 4H
Yeah.
and let people access through a thing here, and on this
Like
side of
the wall in
4H,
China.
another big wall.
Right.
So
Well,
therefore
you
you're
know
driving
what?
through
That is
all
not going to be
walls.
No, I
aesthetically
agree.
pleasing.
No, but what I'm saying,
If they want to do
if
that,
you're
right.
really
It's an
that
option.
concerned that people are coming into your property or doing because we're the only ones that are robbing.
Correct.
Okay? So if you're that concerned that we're gonna come through your neighborhood and rob your home, then put up defenses, and all I'll be driving through is a wall, a street with a wall. I can't go left, and I can't go left, and I can't go
You
right.
know another excuse they're using?
Okay.
They're claiming that when you drive on Hamilton Drive, when too many people go to the beach, to the thing, they park on the side of the road and the road come level. Much road wrong till you can't drive side by side. I mean, those excuses, in addition to that, what the Park Service did, they took some 40 by 40 concrete columns and they erected them all around so you can't go down, and you have to climb over these things and walk to get there. They want to walk miles from outside the Judith Fancy to go in. They have a road named General Jean A. Romney Drive.
Yes.
Does that belong to Romney then?
No.
But it didn't. It's a name on a road.
Right.
But I'm
It's a public
saying
road, though.
it is a
Yeah.
public road. But I said what I'm saying because we are allowing these guys to make us believe that because you are living in this $1 million upstreet, we have $1 million homes right in Women, Campo Rico,
That's
and
true.
Grove. I
That's
mean,
true.
so should we now put up a gate? And I said, Mr. Henderson, you live in Grove now. Who are you going to? 6 o'clock guard. Anybody who don't live in Grove can come through here.
Well, the same thing could happen right now at Good Hope,
Yeah.
where the school is.
Correct.
Remember, the beach is on the side there.
Yeah.
As long as Good Hope has been there, I have never seen anybody stop anybody from going to that beach.
I knew who lived
down
down there,
there.
a contractor named Shannon. Scanlon built that house that looked like an airplane.
Right.
Inside there. I know these places, a lot of us know these places, but for some reason, some of us believe that when we move into these neighborhoods, it makes us better and above the regular man that you live by. And that's a dangerous mentality to put in young people's head. Everybody have to meet the same thing. The children from Junior Fancy, if they want to go to Sunny, they get a helicopter, they got to drive in Sunny Heights, they'll meet my child or your child. They want to go to a dance, they'll meet me in 2+2. So, you know, when they go to 2+2, you take a helicopter and get out and then that. No, we don't meet up the place so small. So when you allow this Soweto activity and mentality to believe you're going to put up a gate to obstruct the night and ask me why gang, then when you coming out to Junior Fancy, I need to ask you where you're going to St. John.
But what I think is so dangerous, I think Natalie hit it on the head. What I think is so dangerous about what has occurred right now is the possibility, and it's probably already there, that we're going to turn, or not we, but this is going to turn in to a clash of the races on this issue, right?
Probably it's already.
And I'm sure that's what it is. But
You
what
will
I-
tell the economic clash
That's
because
it. That's where I'm
I-
gonna go.
I mean,
Yeah, and that's it. It's more than
it's an economic clash
more
because
than
you have
the races.
other
Yeah, have other-
races living. You have
Sure.
people of Indian descent, African
Yeah, but
descent,
when you're
and
mentioning,
Hispanic
but yeah,
descent.
but
so you come on money thing.
but the African and the African American, well, the African and the Hispanic descent, from when I can see what's been going on so far, aren't the vocal ones out front telling you don't let them come in? That's what I'm saying. I mean, yes, I agree with you. It's more of an economic issue,
Yeah.
right? And in my house, I want to be safe too. I want to make sure nobody don't come into my place.
So we have
right?
one of them. They're using one of them. What's his name? Mohet.
No, Robert Mohet lives in there,
Robert Mohet.
and he was going up and down with all the
Right.
deeds. Roy Rogers said he living there for 36. I don't have no problem. Me and Roy Rogers go up to get trousers sheet from each other. I'm saying, Roy, I don't have a problem who live in here. My problem is that you guys trying to tell me that I can't go on that road
Yeah,
to
that's
go
a
to the
problem.
beach.
But what I find most dangerous though is the fact that the Attorney General would be so callous
That's it.
with an issue like this.
That's it.
But you know, let me.
You know what I'm saying? So just not even give it the weight, to just give it a press, even if he took 2 months, 3 months to put something good in writing to clear up whatever needs to be cleared
Well,
up.
let's just be sure, gentlemen, that we haven't jumped the gun to assume that a opinion is not in the works.
So then why issue a press release?
We said the
but
press
let me-
release
Then we don't need to issue a press
represents
release.
his press release said the opinion that he didn't know. He said the Attorney General have issued opinion saying bam bam bam.
But nobody can find it.
Look at the
He's
question.
asking the public to participate and work together and respect the rights of the residents and the right to privacy. But none of this
So
come to the bottom and says a state rule.
So there's some sort of a understanding that there's some, or should have been some opinion.
Let's talk
He wants us to work together and be happy.
But let's talk
But
about.
he wants
the
to also
point is-
recognize that people have a right to their private property.
They don't have a
Nobody
problem with private
disputes that
property.
they have a right to their private property.
right.
But just that this isn't.
Look at
But
the
then-
question. When I know.
Hold your thought a minute,
Yeah.
though, just to clarify what you're saying. Even if he had rendered an opinion, that doesn't override the law.
No.
It
That doesn't
doesn't.
take
It would be
precedence
dead
over the
wrong.
existing
And the
law.
reason why it would
It
be
would
dead
be
wrong is
contrary to the
because
law,
there
but
is already law in its place.
Yeah.
The Attorney General's
Let's just
opinion is
clarify
only
that.
law when there's no other law
Existing.
already in
And
existence.
these are not just territorial or superior court law. These are
District
federal
court cases,
court
third
cases that have
circuit
never been
cases.
appealed higher than the
Well,
third
for
circuit.
some has been appealed, but the Third Circuit has
Affirmed.
affirmed
Sure.
the decisions of the trial judges.
See, that may justify why there's no opinion being issued.
Yeah, but then she said
But then
that
your
tell
press
us
release
people
right.
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 Let me ask you a
Instead of-
question.
Uh-huh.
When you're going to Judith Fancy, like if you, let's say you're going to visit somebody to their home, how do they treat that particular person over somebody?
I don't
going-
know.
No,
well,
but
what
I-
you do when you go there, they have a
They-
sign says
Yes.
visitors and contractors. So they would ask you if you're going to visit a attorney here.
And it-
I'm going to so and so. They actually log in,
Correct.
and you get your name and address and the explain number, and you send back out.
Correct. But I can't remember they asking me for a license when I went to.
They doing it
drop-
now?
No, when I dropped my son off about two
do what?
months.
Where you drop him in there
I
to?
drop him off to some big, this big house on top of the hill.
Well, because you're probably going to a house or somebody's home,
Correct.
so they expect you to show up
Yeah,
there.
but why is there a difference in terms of how you teach? If somebody's just driving to go to somebody's house and somebody going to the beach, are you just trying to
Because the
say
sign
that
says visitors and contractors, and I'm not a visitor
the
or
people
contractor.
that
I'm
do
doing
this
it
Correct.
so late.
So you're just trying, are you trying to imply because I'm going to the beach, there's a higher propensity
So
on
you
my
just
part
took a
to
steal.
go and
Yes.
pilfer?
Well,
Yes.
think about it. That is makes
No,
sense.
no,
Yeah, but
that makes no sense.
People in Judith
Yes.
Fancy own residents have been stealing and breaking in homes right in there.
Thank
Each
you.
other.
And have been coming out and taking care of with the people.
Because
But gentlemen, that is the understanding that there's a higher likelihood when you have, of truancy and people just coming through and floating
So what
around.
about
and don't
what
know
about
where
what
they're
about
going.
hold on,
Not
Marian
going
Grove
specifically
Well, look
to
at-
a home.
And
and
other,
have a view?
like
well, look
they
at
said
good
before, the
old
other
school.
neighborhoods.
That
Look at
part,
good old
gentlemen,
school.
let's be
Let me
realistic.
give you an example. Go
So you
to
want
good
to-
old school beach. You're gonna go and find a bunch of beer cans, rum bottle, and all kind of things down at good old beach. Is it my child going down there at good old beach and doing that? No, it's the same people coming out of Judith Fancy, Queen's Quarters, Mary Fancy going down to good old beach and doing all of those nonsense down there. Not my
And then you
child.
take our children to go to clinic.
They didn't know that.
The issue is you try to imply something and a likelihood of success that you know you can't succeed.
I don't think-
Because you have
All
a
I'm
case
I mean,
now.
let me put myself in this situation. I don't live in Judith's Fancy, but let's say I did. And let's say I own $1 million home in there and I'm paying the homeowners association fees. And I am fully aware of the increased rate of crime in St. Croix and the fact that nothing is being done about
Who
it.
mean nothing being
I
done?
may not
They
to the
arrest people
satisfaction
for
of people in
anything.
Virginia. Yeah, but they arrest people and then what? What else happens? And sometimes the arrest don't even ever come.
You see, that's
But
why
put it
something
as
you
it
can't get a
may,
conviction
the
in court
reality of
because you
it though,
stereotype you convicted
I,
people.
putting myself in those people's shoes, may very well want that type of
And
situation.
here's what Judge Christian is saying.
You can't have
When
it.
you buy property with the knowledge of an occurrence happening on the property in the community, then you buy it at your peril. You bought that your house with fancy knowing that there is a road that
Yeah.
goes through there.
And
you can't stop
something
it from
happening
coming
there
through.
too.
I am
Exactly.
saying,
Then put a gate around your house.
but hold on.
A big one.
But hold on, there's some houses in Judith Fancy that they have big gates and big walls.
Yeah.
Not that alone. In Shoys, they have people can stay in California with a monitor and a
I see
computer,
you.
open the light and turn on the light and open the gate.
Thank you.
Technology.
They have the affluence to buy all of that to prevent me.
In other
And the
words-
government and the house are dangerous.
Okay, let me ask you this. How do I know when you said you're coming in there under the guise and then don't tell me
The
this will happen,
guise?
guy?
You stereotyping.
You were coming in
Hold on a
there.
minute, wait, let's stereotype after the other
Let me-
commercial.
yeah, I want you guys-
we'll come back.
Let's be
Natalie's question,
realistic.
though.
Let's say you're coming in there to go to the public beach, but instead you're not really going to the public beach. Now that you have access to get in there,
Right.
you're going up and down the people in the neighborhood and you staking out.
But
And
let me-
then
but wait.
you come back now later on with your buddies them,
Yeah.
and you done stake out that particular
Then the
house.
same
on top
again
of the
with
hill
Professor
there.
Moby
Come
Joe.
on,
Okay,
guys.
but wait, I wanted to
grew up
ask-
in Moby
but wait,
Joe,
I
but
wanted-
I'm telling you guys how this
Okay,
thing
but
works.
let's answer this question
Well,
before our break.
If you pray to
Wait, hold on, hold on, hold on.
Let's
Hold
go away.
on. When we come back from our break, Natalie getting hats. When we come from our break, she'll drink some water and cool down. We'll be back in a minute. And welcome back to VI Voices. We're still here discussing the Open Shorelines Act, and Natalie was presenting a question, which was basically, well, I said a situation where you have people who would come into this van, or will come to the neighborhood and would say, "I'm going to the beach," with where they're saying they're not really going to go, and they go and look around and they leave and come back with their friends and come in and rob somebody's home.
Case in a joint.
Case in the joint, and come back to Judith Fancy. And so your position was, what if somebody's lying and saying they're going to the beach? Shouldn't Judith Fancy be protected from that?
And you don't want to stereotype, but you kind of look at certain people and say, they're really coming to the beach up in here, or they're really coming for some other
What
mischievous?
kind of clothes McVeigh had on when he
You know?
blew on the place?
But think about
question.
it. Who the rob millionaires or the millionaires? Just think about it.
Or accountants.
Accountant.
On the mainland or here in
No,
the
think about it. You go to a big house in Judith Fancy. Our criminals.
You say they're not sophisticated enough
Our
to rob
criminals who
millionaires?
happen to not live in Judith
They're
Fancy.
brave enough to do it.
They're brave enough, and they definitely don't have the sophistication nor the
And the
equipment
resources,
to do the resources to do what the jobs they need to do, because some of them they have to go through these high-tech security
Alarm
systems.
system.
All kind of these different
Cameras.
things.
Are you guys? I'm
But
not
you know what,
agree-
though?
I'm
Here's
not-
what I will
I'm
say,
not
though,
judging
and
without
that
Well,
would
if that's the case, then get a security company.
I represent
Apart
them
from
on
the
all
place
levels.
itself.
I've seen the what you call the dumb criminals. I've seen the very sophisticated ones as well.
And what they do,
come at all levels
thank you.
now.
But trust me, the millionaires they rob for millionaires. So those people in Judith Fancy need to start to worry about their
But
neighbors.
see, here's my thing though. Aside from who robbing whom, right? At the end of the day, when you look at the Open Shorelines Act, it doesn't take into consideration the fact that you think people are going to come
Any
to your
other
land to
right.
rob. That's the bottom line. Their position is, we've had a rash of robberies. Well, you know what? There were a rash of robberies in Wim, there were a rash of robberies in Grove, there were a rash of robberies all over,
Pamperico.
right? But what I'm saying though is, it seems to me, the case that seems to imply is, yeah, we recognize that that's a legitimate reason to you because people are robbing your area. But it will not and does not trump the Open Shorelines Act and the people's right for access to the beach.
While I agree with
Or to the rules
you,
of the public.
what if it is challenged? And
But it has already been challenged.
But what if it's
And they've
challenged
been shut
again?
down.
And in light of our living situation today, where our economy is at all-time low, crime is at an all-time high, there requires modification.
Then nobody should go to the beach. Everybody should get a pool.
That's a risk.
No,
that
but
Then
I
nobody
don't
should go to the beach.
No, I don't
Everybody in Judith Fancy should
That
get
is a risk.
a private
But then-
police post
That's it.
and let them patrol the area for them.
That's
What it is.
still not.
Okay, but here's
that's
but
still
okay,
not-
let's
reason
go.
to
What if we
bridge.
follow the Attorney General's press release where the access is the beach only? Then what's to stop me from going in the ocean, coming up on the shoreline, and still going to rob
Because it's a
rob
bit
your house?
much. It's cumbersome.
No, it doesn't make any
It's
sense. The
cumbersome.
point is either if I want to rob your house, I'm coming to rob your house, whether I come by land, boat, or sea.
Or what
I'm
if-
coming to
but
rob
you know
your
what?
house.
But let's say I have an easier way to come in and kind of like
So you can try to
visualize the area, and then I come back to
So I
the
think that's the-
I
come
think
back
you
to the
got.
water.
Yeah, I think you're.
So are you
you're
going to just tell people they can't drive cars anymore?
Right.
You can't drive cars through
No,
particular
but
neighborhood.
No.
why not?
No.
Tell people
That's
they
the
can't
thing.
drive.
You could drive to Hollywood in California with a car if you don't live there, right?
Certain areas, but if you have the big old guard gate up and the security fence,
the-
I could
to the
put through,
person's house.
But I can't.
No, but
to
to
go
the
into the
neighborhood.
neighborhood.
But see,
to
that's
go
the
to the
thing.
neighborhood.
Here's
To go to
why.
the neighborhood.
But that's
Here's the
California,
problem.
they see in the Virgin
Yeah,
Islands.
none of the beaches in California are shut down, that nobody can go. And everybody got beach homes and the beach. With everybody there every day. Malibu has people on the beach every day. Homes right there. Nobody's stopping from coming there. My thing is, if you want a gated community, it's your right to have a gated community in the center of the island. You can have, and you want nobody coming through,
okay,
you want nobody coming through, then have it in the center of the island.
Now, even though I have the money, you're restricting me, and I want to be on beachfront, which is prime property. You telling me I'm restricting mid-island?
Here's what I'm saying to you. If you want to be in a gated community that abuts or is pertinent to the shoreline, then you better recognize that people coming through to get to the shoreline, because the law allows for everybody to do it. If you don't want nobody walking through your gated community, then your gated community to be in Clifton Hill, where there is no ocean.
Right, so
but just know there are landmarks within Clifton Hill.
Right, but on top of the area, there wouldn't be one.
Listen, guys, how come this has been like this for how long now?
What?
Nobody
was challenging going inside.
You know what that came about? You know what that came about from? A young man that was a little boy used to go fishing. He took his wife and his 4 daughters, and they called the police with him. They embarrassed the man in front of his children. So they called a whole family. And he was hot is when I hear him. The rest of the man, I don't call this guy because I know him.
So then that tells me that people rarely try to access the Judith's Fancy Beach.
Yes,
right.
But
yes,
they progressively change the rules to Judith's Fancy over the
They erected
years.
this guardhouse and put the bag of them in and out. And they claim that 4H stopped behind their back and 4H continued down named Hamilton Trail.
Even when you do the Salt River hike, you know, there are 9 different hikes. When you do the Salt River hike, you have to park your car on the outside.
Right.
Sign in, everything, even though you're with a tour guide, and walk all the way down to the water to begin your tour.
And you also end up on the Judith's Fancy Beach. So they allowing themselves to be controlled and denied access to the shoreline by forcing you to the park.
Even at Carambola, they can't deny you access at Carambola. Because if you go there, remember Davis Bay Island is over there. If I want to go to the beach, they can't stop me from going there because I am not a hotel occupant of Carambola. Yes, they have a guard gate. The most guard asks you where you're going. I went to the beach. Oh, okay. And you're gone down. Nobody asks you for anything else.
You know, he said, park up there and then you can walk. No.
But you don't drive in. But at the end of but the walk isn't a walk. Like that, like a walk coming from Judith's Fancy to get to that other beach. What I'm saying is, Carambola has signs all over. Pool for occupants, hotel guests only. This for hotel guests only. Yes. But it never stops you from walking through and getting to the water.
I know when I go to other drive down to the hotel park.
I do that too.
I'm going to the restaurant.
I do that too.
I'm going to the restaurant.
I call what another doesn't want. I go to a restaurant.
That's
all. I go down to the beach.
50 years from now, if none of us are here, how does our great-grandchildren know that we could have done that? That is how these pilgrims took the continent from the Indians and put them on a reservation. And I don't intend for my generation, none of our generation, to end up like the Indian on a reservation.
But how do we educate now? I mean, we started at least a discussion tonight on this show.
Enforce the law.
How do we educate people outside now?
Because
outside of this medium?
The Virgin Islands law requires that every child in a public school from kindergarten to 12th grade, that law is 20 years old.
Oh, I know.
So all we need to do as parents,
but I'm saying that for purposes of this Judith's Fancy discussion, the Shorelines Act, right? Because a lot of people don't really, I still think a lot of people don't really understand the Shorelines Act. Because even the Dorsch Beach, Miss Dorsch could very well, she's passed on now, but clear now, could very well erect something that says, I don't want you walking an aisle here. Here's a portion that you can go in, because technically all that land is hers. So when people camping and all this other stuff, it's on people's land you're camping.
You know that happened already?
Thankfully, she's never though, that's what Miss Dorsch has been, I don't remember, has never stopped anybody from coming on a beach, driving on a beach, whatever, even though all of that is her, because it is. Adjacent to the beach.
She had to grant it with that case.
No, but there's no, she hasn't issued anything. What I'm saying is, it's her land, but the case law makes it clear.
No, Donald Trump said,
you think anybody can now today, or let's say Clear, for whatever reason, can come today and say, you know what, yeah, my aunt has now passed away, I'm now on this land, so I'm gonna erect a whole fence. You want to get there? Go down to the dock, the little dock, and walk your way up to the beach.
For fish market.
No, for the fish market,
That
walk
would
your
be
way
the
up.
only way by the fish market.
Until the judge show her the case.
Right.
She
And
can't.
all the court is going to say is no. Because for how many years have people camped there for Easter on this beach? How many Sundays have people gone to this beach and sat on this beach? And Miss Dorsch, who was the original owner of that area,
Never said
knew
it.
everybody was doing it and never said anything about it. So therefore, you have to accept it as she accepted it.
Let me answer your
That's
question.
what happened.
You ask the question. Ask it again. How the population or how whomever gonna know or aware?
Yeah, how do we educate people on it well?
The only way that gonna happen at this point, especially because of the press release, is like you said, 40, 50 of us got on there and get locked up. And make it known, and make it public,
Well, I wait
so they
to see
could
that.
read.
You waiting? You
I
coming
wait to
if
see
they're
that.
going?
I wait
So
to
so
see
they
you
could
go
read
with
this
the
You
lie.
ain't see she said she didn't pay Jude. She said she ain't living Jude fancy.
Yeah, but then from right over Mom Jew, when you go for those places to go to the Valley
The
Beach, you
Valley.
come to you because most don't own all that. So
But
when
we've
you
never
say you
denied-
can't
we've
go there,
never
what you
denied
gonna
going
do?
any of them beaches that
But
I know
one
of.
size we
It's never
have
been a
is
problem.
we as a people who knows better must put ourselves
That's
in a
right.
position, not a comfort and convenience,
What can we
but
have?
controversy and
Right.
conflict
Right.
solve
Right.
problem.
Can we have public forums? I mean, like public education stuff on
See,
each
Channel
other?
6, I think
Yeah, I was
Channel
just
6
gonna
was
say
that,
that,
yeah.
Channel
No,
6.
I am not even saying Channel 6 because we already know Channel 6 is part of North Korea. So that's not happening. So only what they want on that station is going
We
to
got Channel 12.
So they are almost there.
Come on.
No. you haven't noticed that I haven't been called back to Channel 12 yet since my debut
But
at the
nothing to hook you.
I ain't
at
adding on to
the
that.
Citizen
Nothing to
Territory.
hook you.
No
Okay.
comments.
Okay. So there's a reason why I'm not back.
I told you not to hook you.
Don't be so
She
sure
she
that.
ain't Anita.
As you can see, I am not.
So all I'm saying is I'll talk with the producers about it. I want us, at least of their
Yeah.
voices, to
And-
do some kind of public campaign to educate on
Right.
this shorelines.
And you know that
Me not a problem with this, you know,
Right.
because
No, if you all gonna get yourself arrested, I'm sure
Me
I'm
afraid.
sure there'll be lawyers who
Because
are sure
why
to the
is
court
it-
Monday
Let me
morning.
just say
when
something.
That's
we
an
have
issue.
local
The issue about things around here, two things can happen when you get arrested. If you go to trial, you have a trial. You present your defense. You can be found guilty or not. If you're found guilty and they incarcerate you, two things have to happen when you're locked in jail. You serve your time and you get out. Or if you die in jail, they have to take you out to burial. And they need is people somebody to come in there. Why should we be afraid of that for my
Right.
Ain't about me, you know. I'm talking about our children. You can't tell me you're going to shut our children out of the place.
Right.
So after a while, you end up again in Hawaii to Waikiki Beach or when you can sauce. That's ridiculous. As a matter of fact, the day we were down there, a white guy came, you know, and he stayed in the line. He said, no, he joining us now because he had to give up his license and sign it to go down there. I wonder where he driving to. You see how it is? So take for black man alone to benefit, everybody go benefit.
Yeah.
And it's not white alone living in there.
Yeah,
You have blacks, Indian,
don't-
Chinese,
Arab.
I'm
Filipino,
not,
everybody living there.
I'm not convinced that it's a color.
It's
or
an
racial
economic
issue.
thing.
I'm a,
No, what I'm saying that I
it's
agree.
economic.
It's primarily an economic issue. But that press release lends itself to it becoming a racial
Racial
one
issue, correct.
someplace else.
Correct.
And that's why I think that press release is irresponsible.
And yes.
He had an opportunity to do something. He had an opportunity right now to
correct that.
really sit down,
That's right.
look at this entire territory, St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John. Look at all
And
our
Buchanan
public
too.
look at
And
all
Water
our
Island.
public roads, everything, and say, you know what? The Shoreline Act is this. It says this. You can't get access, and here are the access, the public access roads. You cannot preclude it
And
every
read
year,
the Danish
and list
treaty too.
every single one of them, and we will never have this problem again.
So are you saying that this administration, time and time again, continue to miss
Time and
the
time
mark?
again. Time and
Because
time
no,
again.
They've been missing the mark from
When-
January 2nd, 2007,
Especially when they
when they
record for
first
the
came
gate.
in.
In reality, it comes to the economic power that drives the political power.
That's right.
So the economic power that is in Judith Fancy and other places can drive political decision. Political decision will be made through the guise of press releases rather than written opinion. Because if the Supreme Court said who got the most money pays the piper to do what they want to write the laws. So if the lawyers can put in
Citizens
place
United.
these things, you don't have the problem until the people are flipped. There are more of us outside of Jones
Until the
Fancy
people- right.
and Choice Beast than they are living in Jones Fancy. You have to
Until the
come out
people
with our
rise up.
children.
And unfortunately, that also lends itself to the lack of education and knowledge.
But it's we
to
must
the
do
public.
that.
I agree with
Again,
that.
it boils back down. Look at like you mentioned, Channel 12 is a public broadcasting station
Who?
for the public.
Where's that?
Channel 12.
We no longer have any local shows.
But who's on the board?
Right, we don't have any local
Came
shows.
with
That
the
voice
board?
has been cut off.
Who, me?
Dr.
National
Peterson on the
TV.
board?
Oh,
You know?
me? I don't know who's on the board.
But that just tells you.
All I know is all I know is that I haven't been asked
Which
back to
Peterson?
Channel 12.
Dr. Peterson, the
Yeah.
event.
That's all I know.
You understand?
Yeah,
Dr.
so,
Eugene Peterson.
What a
But
guy named,
just the
he in
reality
charge
of what
of
we're
the
dealing
government
with.
access channel. What you
Earl
name?
Morris.
No. Wow. Not
John
Rio.
Rio?
Our next guy that works in
Brown?
John Rio. Eh?
Mr. Brown?
No, not Brown.
But this stifling
Raul
of
something
the
is
public's
named.
right
I know,
of
Raul
access.
Carrillo.
Yes.
Carrijo, yeah.
Well, that's public. That's PBS. He's PBS.
Well, but people
But
should
I don't
listen
know
to
what
I'm
that.
saying is
Here,
at the end
here's
of
what
the
we
day-
want our time. So here's what we're going to do. We are definitely going to talk with the producers to see if we can do an education campaign on this Shoreline Act.
Sure.
And do some more discussion about it. Have stuff on Facebook. Have we do some, public discussions publicly. Invite people to come. Bring your map. Discuss these issues that are in there, so people can be more aware of what's going on, what's
Go
happening.
to the cadastral.
You can get our bumper stickers going.
Yes.
Their deeds that they're claiming that they acquired it in a deed. If the deed was written wrong, it should have not been registered. You can't sell the
I
road.
agree with that. I completely
We
agree with
probably
that.
need to take a closer look at that.
At what happened.
Yeah.
Well, Senator Bryan, I want to thank you for coming on the show tonight. You've been very insightful. We'll have you back again, I'm sure.
I could come back to God's spill evidence.
Wonderful, because I think you are necessary in this community because everybody don't want to fight. And so we
You see,
need people
even
who will
about
be
that,
able
you
to
know,
fight.
At my age, I travel a lot of places in the world, and I see a lot of injustices taking place only because the people sat back passive and did nothing
Yes.
because they were afraid.
Yeah.
You can't frighten me for something that happened to me eventually.
Correct. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Remember,
Anytime.
your voice can
Thank
make a
you.
difference. Good night, everybody.
Good night.